Welcome back, guys. So I thought about skipping all of the Infiniti M generations and starting with the 2006 model, but this video just would not be right without acknowledging the generations that came before it. So before we begin, let's discuss the different generations of the Infiniti M. When Infiniti first launched in 1989, there were two cars available, the full-size flagship Q45 and the M30. So if you walked into an Infiniti dealership and the Q45 was a little bit too pricey, then you could happily leave the dealership with an M30 since it was really just a lower priced alternative. That is, if you didn't mind having two less doors, a lot less room on the inside, and less cylinders under the hood. The M went on a long hiatus, but it returned for the 2003 model year. This time, it was now a four-door sedan that packed a V8 under the hood, cranking out a whopping 340 horsepower. But unfortunately, this model was short-lived, with 2003 and 2004 being the only model years. But despite that, the M would eventually come back. So that brings us to the third generation. After another hiatus, the M came back for the 2006 model year, released in February 2005. The M used an enhanced version of the Nissan FM platform. This platform was shared with things like the G35, 350Z, and the FX. It was available with the VQ series 280 horsepower 3.5 liter V6 and the M35, or the Q45's 335 horsepower 4.5 liter V8 and the M45. At this point, the big Q45 was no longer exported from Japan after model year 2006. So pretty much that meant this new M45 would become the new flagship of Infiniti. The Infiniti M, a car that started out as a lower price alternative to the Q45, now took its spot and became the flagship sedan. However, the outgoing Q45 with a standard V8, full-size status, and plethora of standard luxury features was still more of a proper flagship than the M45. Infiniti dropping the Q and making the M the flagship would be the equivalent of Lexus dropping the LS430 and making the GS430 its new flagship. The GS is a great car and all, but still not a proper flagship compared to the LS. The M was equipped and priced competitively against its German rivals like the 5 Series, the E-Class, the A6, and so forth. The new M also got a lot of positive reviews. The M35X won Consumer Reports' top luxury car pick for 2006, stealing the top spot from the 2005 Lexus LS430. For the 2008 model year, the Infiniti M got a mid-cycle refresh. This was not a spectacular refresh, but just enough to squeeze more life out of this generation before it would be replaced. The M45 got optional all-wheel drive, which was referred to as the M45X. There were revised front and rear fascias, revised taillights, and redesigned blue highlighted gauges that were previously orange. Infiniti also offered an S-Type version for the M45 and M45X, similar to the previous Sport model. Other new features on the 2008 model included touchscreen hard drive based navigation, iPod integration, and a music hard drive. For 2009, the M35 got a new V6 engine. It cranked out 303 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque, and it was paired to a 7-speed automatic transmission. The 2009 M35X, M45, and M45X kept the 5-speed automatic. The Infiniti M did not make a huge impact within the mid-size luxury market. So in other words, although this was pretty much a well put together luxury sedan, it was still overshadowed by the Germans and also the rival Japanese luxury brands. The Infiniti G37 Coupe and Sedan competed in the entry-level luxury sport category. Although the entry-level luxury segment was very competitive too, Infiniti still had a ton of success with the G. How successful? Well, let's just say the G accounted for half of the brand's sales as of 2009. In 2009, Infiniti sold 81,000 cars, but only 10,000 of them were the M-series. On top of all of that, the 2009 update left the M35 and M45 in awkward positions in the Infiniti lineup. Although these cars were positioned as flagships of the brand, they were outpowered by the VQ37 engines under the hood of the 2009 G37 Coupe and Sedan. For example, the flagship M45 with its 4.5 liter V8 was produced in 325 horsepower. On the flip side, the car that was positioned as the entry-level sedan was producing between 328 and 330 horsepower. For that model year, the G-series got 7-speed automatic transmissions across the lineup. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, only the M35 rear-wheel drive was upgraded to a 7-speed automatic. The rest of the M cars kept the old 5-speed automatic. So yes, this car was beginning to show its age, but a new generation was right around the corner. This third generation Infiniti M ran from 2006 to 2010. So that brings us to the fourth generation M. The production version went on sale in the US on March 1st, 2010. It was launched in Europe at the 2010 Geneva Motor Show. Now, this generation was more of a proper flagship sedan. It had the size, it had the looks, and it had the power. And if you got the M56, you got a whopping 420 horsepower. The M was the first car sold by Infiniti. Well, technically it was the first car. You had the Q45 and you had the M30. The M started out as a two-door coupe, and it was based on the second generation Japanese market Nissan Leopard. The F31 Leopard appeared in the Japanese market in February 1986 and was only available as a luxury GT coupe. By the time we got it as an Infiniti in North America, it was sold as a 1990 model. The M30, as it was called here in North America, was powered by a 3-liter V6. This car ran from 1990 to 1992 for the North American market before going on a long hiatus. The new second generation M finally came out for 2003 in the North American market. This time, it was based on the Japanese domestic market Nissan Cedric and Nissan Gloria. Also, this time around, you could get your new M with a standard V8 borrowed from the Q45. As its name suggests, the M45 had the 4.5-liter naturally aspirated V8 that cranked out 340 horsepower. The M that we focused on in this video was the third generation, which went on sale in 2005 for the 2006 model year. This iteration focused more on luxury. Overall, it was more refined and less brutal than its predecessor, especially since it was going to become the new Infiniti flagship. The third generation Infiniti M was marketed in Japan as the Nissan Fuga. The Fuga is a mid-size luxury sedan produced by Nissan. It is built on a wider, stretched wheelbase version of the Nissan FM platform. This time around, you could actually choose between 6 or 8-cylinder power. The M35 had the 3.5-liter V6 under hood, or you could get the M45, which once again borrowed the 4.5 V8 from the Q45. Then the fourth generation came out, still being nothing but a rebadged Nissan Fuga. Sticking to the usual naming strategy of Infiniti, the M56 had the 5.6-liter V8 that put out a whopping 420 horsepower. Later on, the M got a name change, becoming the Infiniti Q70. Nope, 70 did not mean it had a 7-liter V8. Infiniti confused a lot of customers with this new naming strategy. Instead, 70 meant that it was positioned over the Q60 and the Q50. The extended length version of the Fuga, known as the SEMA, was offered as the Infiniti Q70L beginning from model year 2015. And ultimately, the Q70 would be discontinued. The car that started out as the M30 and eventually graduated to flagship status, now abruptly discontinued to make way for oversized, overpriced, and bulbous crossover SUVs. Alright, so that's it for this discussion. Let us know if you owned or drove an Infiniti M, any generation, whether that's the M30, the M45, the second generation, the third generation, or the latest generation. And let us know how you liked it. Do you think it was a proper flagship, or do you think Infiniti should have kept the Q45? Can't wait to hear your comments, and I will catch you on the next video.